In 1870, black people couldn't vote until the Voting Rights Act was passed in the mid-1960s. So now when people are talking about we live in a colorblind society and you've got your black president, so what are you still whining about? And aren't you all the racists for bringing up race? Just think about the fact that black people really didn't vote until 1965. Why? Because if you were eligible to vote, again, the 15th Amendment in 1870 said black men can vote anywhere in the United States. But if you went to the polls in 1961 in Money, Mississippi, you might get lynched. You just might get lynched. So there was white people and black people going into Mississippi trying to register people to vote, and it was a dangerous place. And people were killed for that. He knew this. He knew that there were white people who were dedicated to that struggle. There were people of color all over the world that were dedicated to that struggle. But those stories get lost when we talk about Martin Luther King. Instead, we like to talk about him as the polar opposite of somebody like Malcolm X, as the polar opposite of somebody like Che Guevara, the revolutionaries of his time, who he was intimately familiar with, and he was friendly with, but also who he sparred with. And this is another thing we're so afraid of these days, is to argue. And I tell my students all the time, argue it out, let's work it out, let's talk about it here. And so as long as you're not saying anything that's deliberately discriminatory, let's hear what you really have to say. Because I'm not afraid, I respect you enough to ask you, where did you learn that? And why are you saying that? And tell me. And people usually, when they get to that point where they finally utter what they've been holding this back for months, right, usually. Now I say that King was not afraid to spar because he and Malcolm X on many occasions, they were on television, or they were on the radio, or they were in public, and they talked about each other, kind of like Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. It was the same thing. They went at each other. They took out, especially Du Bois in Washington in the early 1900s, they were taking out personal ads and pages in the newspaper saying, oh, you know, this is why this person is so whack. That's not how they said it, but this is why you shouldn't listen to this person. But we don't have that anymore. We're too afraid that we're going to say something wrong. But it's not, we have to, this is my final point about this, second to final point, is that, you know, we blame ourselves like many victims of abuse. You blame yourself for the fear to come out and say anything, the fear of being inarticulate. When we don't trust our hearts enough, are they in the right place? Do you have the fortitude to get shut down and to bring it up again? To say, no, wait a minute, I didn't mean to offend anybody. I just really feel that I need to say this because I want to learn. We're too afraid to, we don't argue in public anymore. Everybody wants to agree and resolve as quickly as possible, partly because we're so strung out on so many distractions that we're afraid more than ever of any kind of social awkwardness. We're rather text and call. No. We can't talk to each other anymore. Can't look you in the eye. That's another thing that I respect so much about my husband. All the time, what? We can't look each other in the eye anymore. What's that about? Afraid. We're too afraid. But the reason I say that many of us, we kind of display these almost like signs of abuse is because we have been abused by the popular media, by officials who tell us that it's our fault for the position that we're in. It's our fault that the subprime mortgage thing happened so that now so many people have lost their homes. It's our fault that we can't afford schools when many of us, at least in I'm at a UC, and I know it's bad all over the place, but just in the amount of time that my students would have been in college, their tuition has tripled. Just in that 4 years, tripled. They are playing the dozens on us. They're calling our mothers whores. They are calling us degenerates. They're saying we're lazy. They're saying we have nothing to contribute to this world. They're saying that our behavior justifies the outsourcing of the jobs that we are entitled to because we've worked hard. So we internalize that stuff too often. And we take the blame for it. And we get distracted so much all the time, you know, doing this stuff. Now, I'm not against it. Believe me, I'm a texter. But I'm saying that too many of us are looking here when we should be looking right here. And we should be looking right here to figure out how is it that today, even if it's just today, I can say, I might lose some friends, but I heard you make a homophobic comment, and I'm telling you something. I don't know any gay people, I don't know any transgender people, but one thing I know is what you said wasn't fair, and I don't tolerate that shit in my house.
Amen.
Get out. Are you brave enough to say that?
Yep.
Are you Christian enough to say that? And I bring that up because too many people say, well, you know, I'm a Christian, I don't really believe in that stuff. Then you don't know Jesus Christ. You don't know Jesus Christ. Being anti-racist is being anti-homophobic, too. And don't forget, and you know what, our people of color, I'm sorry, but we are the worst culprits in that. And you know why? Because we've been victims of a divide and conquer situation. You know what would happen if gay rights joined black rights? Oh my God, come on now. Come on now. It would be over. But we can't get together because we're too something. I don't agree with that. It's not something to agree with. You're born with it or you're not. But I don't agree with it, so I can't speak. You can speak up. If it's unjust, speak up. I don't stand for sexism. I'm not going to let you make that joke about that woman. Not because I'm uptight, just because, you know what, that's not fair. You're going to lose some friends. That's why he had so few friends. That's why he died for all of that. And so this is what I'm coming to now, truly, as my last point. People don't understand what it means to have a protracted struggle, also. That stuff that King came into, didn't start it. He didn't start it. That's the thing. That's why I tell you, Rosa Parks sat down on the bus and was ejected from the bus by the same guy 11 years earlier for doing the same thing. What do you think it's like? 11 years you sit in the back of the bus, but you know one day it's going to change. One day it's going to change because you're going to do something about it. What do you think it's like for people who feel like they never had any relevance? Every single cultural message they get in 1956 when they're living in Levittown, you know something about that because that's your region, but you're living in some kind of cookie-cutter suburb, and you're a white person, and you've never seen anybody really black unless they're your maid, you know, but or the person at the gas station or whatever. But all of a sudden you're watching these messages, you're watching, you know, these children being put into jail. In the South, many of those kids got really, really angry and said, wait a minute, so America's not really free. You've been lying to us. And this is how they become politicized. And many of them came into a context that they had been told their whole life had nothing to do with them. But they came into it anyway. And they lost, many of them lost their lives. They lost their families. Now, I've said a lot about white progressives, and you know, I'm definitely not the person to play oppression Olympics, but you know, it's hard to be a white progressive, but it's harder to be a person of color. Okay, I'm gonna tell you that right now. But I say that why? Because there's these struggles that people enter into. They come, they go, they struggle for years, and they don't know what the outcome is going to be, but they have faith, and that's the thing that we've lost today. We stage a protest, believe me, and I learned this from organizers on Skid Row, that a protest, it should be a reflection of the struggles in the community. It's not, let's have a protest to make a point. No, the point has been made, the work has been done. Have a protest to bring some attention to the work that's already being done. We don't understand that because we're fed all these other messages about what's important, about what organizing is, but the most important and loudest message that we're given is that it doesn't work. The collective action doesn't work, but it does work. It always has worked. And I have my students all the time telling me, well, you know, maybe we need a new strategy. Why? Why? Because anything that's ever been worth fighting for, people fought for together, even when they thought that they didn't have anything in common. So we have something to learn from that, and we have something to learn from patience. And that is, it's not going to be over in a day. But these things, they happen. I mean, we really can't take an example from the people who are now, I just read in the New York Times yesterday, people trying to get married, or gay couples trying to get married in the South, knowing they're going to be turned down. But they're deploying what? A black radical tradition. These are black people that I'm not going to say that they're originators, but they made it famous, okay? Around the world, this is how black people have done it. And King came into that context, and he radicalized it, even as he was in his suit all the time, for good reason. I mean, it's, again, politics of respectability. Not just I'm fighting to be part of it, but you need to let me in because look how respectable I am. This is also why, you know, I can't show up and teach a class in shorts. You know, a lot of my male contemporaries can. But not me, because I'm questioned all the time about where did you get your, yeah, you got your degree, or you know, I get students who refer to me as, hey girl, on email, right? I'm not your friend. I was always tell my students, we're friendly, but I'm not your friend. We're not there. Because my students are 18 today, so just put it out there. I digress. I'm telling you, though, that this notion of a protracted struggle, a protracted collective struggle, they really almost convinced us that it doesn't work, and that if it ever did, it was at a different time. But it does work. And so I think the best way we can honor King is to make him more than a symbol. And that was what I began with, is to say that I don't ever want to be just a symbol for racial justice, a symbol, somebody who's asked to explain everything about Black or Latino people because I happen to be the only one in the room. I don't want to be just a symbol of all of the most powerful things that he stood for. And we shouldn't let that happen to him. And the best way to do that is to say, you know what, I don't tolerate racism, homophobia, sexism. I don't tolerate that stuff. I don't maybe know all the arguments why. I don't know, maybe I'm not totally up on all the current events. Doesn't matter. Do you know what's just in your heart? And what are you willing to do for it?
I like listening to her. I know some people have to go. I'm just going to wrap this up with that, you know, the next 7 years, you got to think about it, you know. Y'all are students in 2013. Next 7 years go into 2020. Which for eyesight means that you're seeing it right. But also you got to look at it, you know, just to say that this next 7 years, you know, it should be at least led by people who have the courage to stand up and see things right and talk for what is right. And not just people following people who are famous just to be famous. Where does that come from? You put it all the time to become a student, to find out somebody who has even done half the mental work that talks to millions of people just because they're on television, which is the drug of the nation and more. So we don't want President Obama to be a shadow on the legacy. We want him to be a prism. And I think that's his understanding coming in, to be a prism for internationality, to see the world and come in. And there's a lot of things that are being leaned on President Obama. You know, you got the mafia, the Congress leaning on him. And like Dr. Johnson said, it's like Dr. King, coming from the South, born in Atlanta, way before it was commonly known as the ATL. And now most of the hip-hop that's all across the world, and the Dirty South is just something that's been around to influence many people. Not the rock story speaking to say, all right, all of the music coming out of the Dirty South has been influential in us going backwards. But that that's coming out of the South that's allowed is counter to the movement that influenced the world when Dr. King and Rosa Parks were actually doing their thing. You go to many countries around the world, and they got their forward movement from looking at the struggle in the American South, which was a culmination of movement from the 1860s, the so-called abolishment of slavery, the so-called. And that movement took place for more than 100 years. So asking for a company to go around and say, well, we got Dirty South representing whether, you know, this person got conflict with that, and for somebody to still legitimize because they use the word nigger 100 times in their rap music, and now it's all desensitized, is absolutely madness. Unacceptable. Yes, it's a word you cannot get rid of a word, but it's out of context. Used like water, highly derogatory to a legacy of people. And if you ain't checked it, you ain't checked yourself. So for hip-hop to actually be plastered and glued on it just because television or people with big money say so, for so many of the people to follow of younger generations like it's some kind of modern technology Pied Piper is blasphemous to the existence of what we're about. So we talk about racial in these so-called post-racial times. But if you can't use the word black and white, there ain't no difference of black people when they're in prison. Oh, this person was a lawyer, this person was a thug. They black in prison. That's common culture, and you don't even know why, because the last two generations didn't know why. So you're the third generation to use it like water since BET became Viacom owned. In 1998, when many of y'all were probably 2 or 3 or 5 years old. My job as a media hijacker is to provide media literacy, and that was my minor in college. Design was my major, and that's sight and sound, which is also the keys of propaganda and mind control. So we have to encourage education. It is a must to make you see clearly. You know, everything can be found online, but can you challenge the information coming at you like a blizzard? Net literacy is very important. Super media, especially, to become net literate. This needs to be taught in the radiation of a radio, TV, movie nation, and whippings of mass distraction, with celebrity being the drug of America, while you try to question, damn, why am I studying something that ain't gonna work for me? If popular culture has crippled intellectualism into anti-intellectualism, y'all ain't got no answers. So you got to also look within yourself, and also got to challenge the information to look into the history and the legacy of things. That's why I said, can a so-called hip-hop nation progress the generations past 140 characters? I would advise everybody here, since we're so close to a foreign country, to at least get yourself a passport. Not just because Rick Ross got something popping off in Cancun, but so you can actually have at least a license to explore eventually. Even if you never use it, you have one. Because the next 7 years, they're going to try to keep people from getting one.
That's true.
And especially people of color. Because one of the most racist things going on right now is all the racism that they pull on the south of the border.
That's true.
Putting pressure on brown brothers and sisters. And just like it's the foolishness that the Canadians are also doing with the United States right now. Hardest border to get into is Canada. And y'all know, just try to go to Vancouver. Before, you used to go to Vancouver like, yeah. Now you want to do your passport, and y'all know, you ain't going to take your ass back to the United States. But at the same time, as far as human beings are concerned, they ain't got nothing to do with you. So you don't want a government to be plastered to your character. You want the human beingness of if that's such a word, to be plastered to your character. You know what I mean? The earth is a very good place to start. And if you think you're going to just go to college because you're forced into trying to get a job or success, I would tell you that success is the collision of preparation of your ideas and opportunity. Hard work, concentration, desire, dedication is not a guarantee that you'll make it. But I would tell you, without it, you don't stand a chance. So that's your duty in here. A lot of people talk about they want a blue Lambo, like Jeezy was saying. I ain't never seen a damn blue Lambo in my life. I don't know what the hell that is. But I know it costs over $250,000. And so if I told everybody, yo, if you had $250,000, you have a blue Lambo or whatever, or a $100,000 car, there'd be yeah. But how many people got blue Lambo prices for hoopty GPAs? So, bottom line, get what you pay for. When you come to the university, don't waste your time. Talk to your professors, because they're here. Don't be a pest. Do it within rules. But you know, you got people of higher learning here. Just don't just be like driven to your, well, I'm going to do this based on my computer and follow what your computer say. Get your higher learning, and I don't care what your friends say. This is something that will make you a magnet to actually, exude what's inside you, to make your surroundings better. Higher education, higher learning is the way to go. And courage and standing up. If you know something, as I say, the many rappers that I've trained, if you know something, say something. Ain't nothing worse than a person that knows a lot they can't say shit.
Thank you.
Well, I know it, but I can't say it because I believe it, but I can't say what I believe. What kind of madness is that? If you believe to your bone and you look into the left and the right, asking somebody else to legitimize your beliefs, you got to say, are you a grown person or what? We expected that out of the 4th grade. But then again, we got 40-year-old 4th graders now. So I say this in closing.
If there was a recession for America, for people of color, it's been a depression. The education, prison, jobs, health care, homelessness, hypocrisy of immigration, they're there in live effect. It ain't that somebody all day, you got to bring up all racism and all that. You want to eradicate that, but you want to eradicate it with people at least being able to be elevated. So you can look beyond that. And if you look beyond the borders and the orders, then you know that this is the one place that we got to kind of get it together, and it starts here, that you come to this place to be a leader. Don't come to get leadership examples in education and go home silent. Go to your neighborhood or to the hood quiet. Because you know ignorance is going to talk and speak loud. So here, the smarter you become, you silence by the smarter that you become. Half of it is, self-defense, I guess, because you don't want to be the person that talks loud in a room full of fools when they can't even get out of the damn room, and you can. But so you got to stand up for something or fall for anything. So we would like you to lead with your own mind, and also acknowledge that, there's people that actually set platform that just cannot be overshadowed into a soundbite in the millennium. The further and further we get away from what they did, and also the further and further away we get from the day that they were killed. Youth is not an excuse. When people say, oh, I was young then. I said, well, you know about Lincoln. Oh, you know about Rome. So youth is not an excuse for not knowing. That's for real. So I'll give you my email address. It's chuckd@publicenemy.com. It's real simple. If you can't remember, if you can't remember that, you don't need to have it. And you can tweet me at Mr. Chuck D. And I read everything. I get around. I retweet things that are real cool and great. And I salute y'all. Like I said, prosperous collegians is like the thing that we need to do more of as an older generation, because we got to encourage younger people and also encourage you to process this information that you can. Because when y'all go back to the community, you think you're young, they looking at you like, here comes this old person. So leave that where you can leave. All right? Thank you.